It's Charles Barkley with Wayfair. It's outdoor season, and my patio setup better be ready to play. That's where Wayfair wins. Patio seating, umbrellas, and grills, all delivered fast and easy. Shop wayfair.ca now.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Today. Debate, interviews, and breaking news. The Elias Macco Show. News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
Well, on the plus side, Quebec's Auditor General says that overall the numbers that the Frechette government produced for pre-election economic snapshot budget exercise are fairly credible and understandable and plausible. So I guess that's a plus for the CAQ government that they put together a report that hangs together in the eyes of the Auditor General, who is tasked with keeping the government honest on figures. The minus on this, as highlighted by the Auditor General, is that the plan to reach balanced budget by 2029-2030 will mean significant pain. How much pain? Probably $5 billion worth of pain, perhaps more. We're looking at something like $2 billion for the next fiscal year, 2027-2028, $3 billion for 2028-29, maybe even more. Here to help us understand these numbers and what they will mean and whether they are the big red flag that they seem to be is Moishe Lander, Senior Lecturer in Economics at Concordia University. Thanks for joining us.
Hello.
Hello. So just a basic reaction to what the Auditor General found. This exercise, of course, is done before an election. It's a legal requirement that the government produce this type of report. And it was found to be by the Auditor General understandable, credible, plausible. Is that your assessment as well?
Sure. Broad strokes, I think the basic argument is that the government doesn't have a path back to balanced budget. Now, I'm not entirely sure that they need to balance their budget, and I think that we've created this false narrative that governments need to always try and aim for that. But, I think that the devil, of course, is in the details, and I'm not entirely sure that when the Auditor General presents these sorts of results, that they know entirely what they're doing when it comes to economic modeling. They're great accountants, but they're not familiar with the modeling process. And so the words that you used, plausible, it's plausible, but I don't know that we should take much more beyond that. They're not economic analysts.
Tell us why you think that it might not be the correct approach to plan for a balanced budget. Isn't that what taxpayers generally like, is to feel that we're not going into debt on the backs of future generations in our spending?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I think that there is this misconception that we should always look for our governments to balance their budgets. And in fact, the government pushes back on us the false narrative that you and I always balance our budget. I'll let you in on a little secret. I've never balanced a budget in my life. The first 20 years of my life, I was a walking deficit. My costs well exceeded my income, especially in my very young years where I wasn't able to monetize my cuteness. My parents, thankfully, lent me the money to finance those things like diapers and baby formula and those things that I couldn't pay for myself. When I got into my working years, most of those years, I ran a surplus. I earned more than I spent. But, of course, in the years when I bought a home, I ran such a huge deficit that I had to go to the bank and get a mortgage. At some point in the near future, I'm hoping for a retirement, and I'm going to go back to running deficits again. We don't balance our budget. Why do we think the government should every year, or why do we think that should be the ultimate aim? You and I run deficits when times are tough. We run surpluses when times are good. And over the course of our lifetimes, we hope that everything balances out. That's what the government should be aiming for. And so in times that are tough right now because of Trump, because of cost of living and affordability issues, if the government comes and tells me they're running a deficit, I'm fine with that. The issue is, what's the deficit on? What are you overspending for? And I'll give you an example again. If I told you that I ran a deficit last year because I took a massive 3-week vacation to Vegas with my 10 closest friends, you'd say shame on you. But if I said that I use that money to pay for my children's education, or I pay to improve my home to make it more livable, you would say, well, that's actually good spending. So it's the same thing with the government. I don't mind that they have a deficit. It's why do they have a deficit?
I think the fear, though, Moishe, is that we have had a number of years of turbulence. We went through the COVID years, with businesses shutting down in some cases, some people having lost their jobs. They were collecting the CERB. There was all kinds of government spending there, and the feeling that there's just more of the same coming at us at a time when Quebec's population is aging. And of course, we have all this trade uncertainty. So isn't it prudent in those times when they are bad and there's no prospect of improvement that we are aiming to balance the budget?
No, it's the exact opposite. It's when times are tough, that's when we need the government to help prop up the economy. You and I can't do it. Businesses can't do it. And for all the reasons that you cited, it's in our best interest to scale back our spending. It's for businesses in their best interest to say, in these turbulent times, this is not the time to expand production, replace equipment, hire more people. So if businesses and households are not contributing to the economy, that's where the government can jump in and say, we can pick up the slack. When times pick up and your incomes are rising, your business is booming, then we can come back and we can collect it from you in taxes to help reduce the deficit that we ran, or to turn into a surplus at least, during those good times. So the government almost has to kind of lean against the wind and be the counterbalance to where we are. If we get a little too happy, take a little money out of our pockets and say, we're going to save this for a rainy day. When the rainy day comes, they say, hey, we have some of that money that allows us to run that deficit. But I would say that where the government has made a colossal mistake is that they've been spending on the equivalent of the Vegas getaway that I was describing, rather than investing in our future. Continuing to fight cultural wars, language wars, religious wars, and creating regulation on top of regulation is stymieing business, not just in the bad times, but it's going to stymie business in the good times as well. It seems rather punitive then. And again, in the Auditor General's report, all they're saying is something blunt like, hey, you should look to cut a couple $2 billion. Fantastic. But even there, cutting a couple of $1 billion, I think the issue is, well, where are you going to cut it? For example, if you cut it from the healthcare system, how many doctors are going to race for the Ontario border? And so when times do pick up, you're not going to have that income tax revenue. And so you're going to be in even deeper trouble because of those cuts. It's a more nuanced story than just the headlines that they're saying, yeah, it seems like you know what you're doing. I would say they really don't know what they're doing. And I kind of throw the Auditor General under the bus too, that they're not really sure what they're doing either when they put out these reports.
So if you were to write the Auditor General's report or provide advice to a government that is seeking re-election, the CAQ government seeking re-election, how would you frame the next 3-4 years?
Well, that's the thing. If I were trying to advise the government, then I would probably put out exactly the report that the OAG did for exactly that reason. It's what's my incentive structure for where I sit, where I don't have to face the public, where I don't have to face an election, where I don't have to say whether the government is doing something correct or not, and then face the legal consequences of that. I think what the government really needs to do is lighten up on the economy. Let people go pursue their self-interest. Let businesses go pursue profit and unleash the private sector. That's the type of thing that helps the economy to grow. In your news story prior to this segment, I heard that the PQ is talking about having a referendum. I'm in Calgary today. That's where I live and I'm based out of. Alberta's looking to have a referendum on separation. I can tell you that is destructive to the economy, and anybody who's old enough to remember what it was like 30 years ago in Quebec, the economy has never recovered from that. Merely the talk of that is dangerous. And so this shows that they're just going to torpedo the government or torpedo the economy by even having the conversation. That should be shut down from the beginning.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in Quebec would agree with you. They don't want any more referendums, especially if they lived through the first two, like I do. I think that the people who embrace sovereignty maybe don't remember the upheaval and the terrible angst, just on a personal level, never mind the business and economic level of the first two go-rounds. But thank you very much, Moishe. I appreciate your time this morning.
Anytime.
Moishe Lander, Senior Lecturer in Economics at Concordia University. We are going to stay with money-related matters. In our next segment, we'll take a look at those inflation figures because in July, 3% is what was posted. That was up from 2.8 in June. And, some eyebrows have been raised. That's coming.
It's Charles Barkley with Wayfair. It's outdoor season, and my patio set up, they'll be ready to play. That's where Wayfair wins. Patio seating, umbrellas, and grills, all delivered fast and easy. Shop wayfair.ca now.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
The newest tracks. Let's go. New music. And the next big thing.
Always on the new music first.
Your first place to hear it all.
'Cause you gon' like it, love it, wanna play it twice. Playing now.
iHeart New Music. Your digital station for brand new drops, fresh finds, and tomorrow's bangers.
I think we need something new.
Discover iHeart New Music. Always fresh, always first. Stream now on the free iHeartRadio app.
Time is valuable. Thanks for spending your morning with us. The Elias Macko Show on News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
Well, you might have caught the inflation numbers a little running ahead of what the economists had expected for July. Came in at 3% annualized, the annualized inflation rate. That's up from 2.8% in June. And it looks as though, yes, we can blame global energy price volatility. Here to share his thoughts about where things are going, Richard Lapointe, Senior Portfolio Manager at CIBC Wood Gundy. Good morning, Richard.
Good morning, Trudy. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. So economists had suspected that we might see a little uptick in inflation last month, but this seems to have been a little higher than what they were calling for. Is that your take as well?
Yeah, I think so, too. They tried to play it down by saying, well, it was well seen, if you will, well understood. We had a conflict in the Middle East. It spiked up oil prices. That plays its way through the entire economy. There was a combination of that, sure. Also airlines, because of the FIFA World Cup, you had significant demand for air travel in Canada and to Canada. And out. So what happened is you saw a spike in airline fares, right? So not only did the airlines take advantage to raise rates to offset their costs on the fuel, but because there was such demand to come into Canada and out of it, you saw a spike there too. So these two played on the top line headline number, right? So if you go to the core inflation, where we strip out food and energy, that came in at 2%. So that's why everyone's saying, well, the Bank of Canada is not so worried about this transitory inflation bump. Not sure that's true.
Well, I know that ordinary people, of all the things that we buy frequently and we therefore track the prices more closely because we are buying frequently, gas and food are for a lot of people, that's what we see. And so when we talk about they were saying grocery price growth slowed a little bit. That doesn't mean we had deflation. That just means instead of the 3.9% in June that we saw, it's 3.1%. That is ahead of the overall inflation rate still. So, again, hitting ordinary folks budgeting, that food and gas to me, the Bank of Canada may not be worried, but when my paycheck flies out of my wallet with two of the basics I have.
Well, I will mention this. Okay, so where it comes to food, I'm very close with several clients who were either in the packaging business or in the food business, and Canada suffers not just necessarily because it costs us more to deliver the food or to grow the food. It's because you've only got a few people selling the food. So if you think of the three main grocers in Canada, right? Loblaws, IGA, Metro, right? These are the big three. So that's an oligopoly. You've got three people controlling most of the food distribution. They're in no rush to lower pricing, right? I mean, if we had a significant amount of competition in that sector, and one could argue Costco and Walmart do sell quite a bit of food, but again, there are 3 main grocers. If we had 5 or 10, that would be very different in the food world.
Aldi, that's the name I keep hearing coming up when people talk about what they would like to see coming into Canada in a big way, is the Aldi chain. Or you could go with the federal NDP pitch for some type of a government-controlled network of warehouse stores where you could go buy your food, and because of the buying power of the government, the prices would be lower. Do you like either of those ideas?
No, okay. So this is a great time for me to throw in my disclaimer. Trudy, these are my opinions and not those of the CIBC Bank.
Yes, as always, yeah.
Never let the government run enterprise. They are extremely bad at it. Let them regulate it, and even that we do way too much here in Canada. Never let them run it. Always allow for more competition. The problem is that Canada protects its oligopolies, its banks, its insurances, its telephones, its grocers. They protect these industries. They don't allow Americans to come in a big way, or international food companies to come in a big way. There's all sorts of rules, regulations. Taxation is excessive for these new enterprises. So we suffer. We pay the highest telephone costs in the world, right? Because there's only 3 of them, right? We pay some of the highest banking fees because, well, there's only 6 of them, right? So, yeah, we're stuck in that regard. We have to have a more pro-business government, which doesn't say we'll take over, but rather we'll let more people in.
Or get out of the way, yeah. So
or get out of the way.
Get out of the way. Do you have any forecast for the balance of the year, Richard, when it comes to inflation?
Well, so my guess would be very challenging here because it's all based on oil, right? Now, Canada's come out of its technical recession. From what we can see from April, May, and June, looks like we're running pretty hot now because Saskatchewan and Alberta really rocking with all these oil increases, right? We're pumping out potash and oil and gas at the highest level we've ever done. So we're coming out of that, but that doesn't help the inflation side. Only thing that would help the inflation side is more competitive environment where prices would come down because people are trying to capture market share. That would help, right? Or raising rates dramatically that the Bank of Canada just doesn't feel comfortable doing at this point. So, yeah, inflation coming off in a big way in the near term, I don't see it. All
right. Well, thank you for your expertise, Richard Lapointe. I appreciate your time this morning.
Great pleasure.
Richard Lapointe, Senior Portfolio Manager at CIBC Wood Gundy. After the 11:30 update, we will talk about CF Montreal. It has told a couple of fans they are not welcome at Saputo Stadium for the next indefinite while because of some antics that were widely seen as anti-Semitic during a game on August 1st. Also, a fan group has been told it will lose some of its privileges in connection with the same incident. That's coming up in a moment.
This newscast is brought to you by Renovco. Renovco does it all, including plumbing. From renovations to plumbing, trust one team. Call Renovco today or visit renovcoplumbing.com.
It's Charles Barkley with Wayfair. It's outdoor season, and my patio setup better be ready to play. That's where Wayfair wins. Patio seating, umbrellas, and grills, all delivered fast and easy. Shop wayfair.ca now.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
iHeartRadio is throwing it back
2010s, the decade.
to the days of huge hits and unforgettable anthems. A non-stop stream of the biggest and best.
Drake, Rihanna, Beyonce, Katy, Gaga, The Weeknd,
And more. All your decade-defining favorites, all in one place.
Hi, it's Katy Perry.
Hey, it's Bruno Mars.
This is Kesha.
Find 2010's The Decade on the free iHeartRadio app. Preset the station so it's always one tap away.
Missed something?
Subscribe to the Elias Macco Show podcast to catch up.
Available on iHeartRadio and wherever you get your podcasts.
Two fans told that they needn't bother try to come back to Saputo Stadium for the next little while, at least. A fan group sanctioned because of what was perceived as anti-Semitic chants at Saputo Stadium during a game earlier this month. We'll speak to a reporter who's been covering this story in a moment.
Your mom told you not to talk back. But we feel very differently. In fact,
we want you to talk back and record your comment via the CJAD 800 page on the iHeartRadio app.
Another way to have your say on the voice of the community.
News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
It's Charles Barkley with Wayfair. It's outdoor season, and my patio set up, that'll be ready to play. That's where Wayfair wins. Patio seating, umbrellas, and grills, all delivered fast and easy. Shop wayfair.ca now.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
iHeartRadio is throwing it back.
2010s, the decade.
To the days of huge hits and unforgettable anthems. A non-stop stream of the biggest and best.
Drake, Rihanna, Beyonce, Katy, Gaga, The Weeknd,
and more. All your decade-defining favorites, all in one place.
Hi, it's Katy Perry.
Hey, it's Bruno Mars.
This is Kesha.
Find 2010's The Decade on the free iHeartRadio app. Preset the station so it's always one tap away. Stories impacting Montrealers. News impacting Montreal. The Elias Macco Show. News Talk Radio. CJAD 800.
CF Montreal has announced that it has told two fans they are not welcome back at Saputo Stadium for the next little while, indefinitely. And a supporter group has been told that it will lose some of its usual privileges as well. This after an Israeli-born player with the New England Revolution was treated to what were considered or interpreted as anti-Semitic catcalls and slurs during a game on August 1st. Here to tell us more about the team's follow-up to what happened is Elias Grigoriadis, a Canadian press reporter who is both at that game and has written about it since. Elias, welcome to CJAD.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, were you sitting in the stadium? Did you hear those chants? Because a lot of fans have said they were confined to that one fan area and could not be heard beyond that.
Yeah, from the press box, it's impossible to hear anything that's not shouted in unison from the supporter section. So after conceding a goal, it did get rowdy. In fact, there was a mass confrontation between the players, so it's even harder to discern what only a couple people said. So yeah, it's mostly been through word of mouth that these allegations have been passing around.
There was also at one point on the field, as this Israeli-born player celebrated a goal, Dor Turgeman celebrated a goal. He kind of, faced the crowd of Montreal supporters and taunted them a little bit. And some of them seem to have responded by throwing bottles. I think this is what the team is talking about when it's talking about two fans being told they are suspended indefinitely from attending games, as they are suspected of having been the bottle throwers. Is that it, Elias?
Yeah, so they were suspended under the code of conduct, right? So the club's statement was quite vague, but there were items thrown on the field. So I'm assuming that the people that were suspended were for that, because that is, that's not a special case. That's always been followed up with a stadium ban of varying degrees of length. So I don't think that those two bans specifically had anything to do with any remarks. It was more just because stuff was thrown at players, not just on the field in general. It was directed towards, opposing players.
Now, tell us more about these fan groups that get together. The one in question here that has been told, it is losing its privileges for, I think, just one game, right? The Impact Montreal Collective. That's just one of the quote-unquote officially, sanctioned fan groups that sit all together in the stadium, do they not, in certain sections, and they have some privileges? Can you background us on that?
Yeah, so the collectif is one of the two main overarching groups. Is that in 1642 Montreal, which is the one that's most commonly associated with the bell. This is the first season that they're spending it on the same side of the stadium. Usually it was one behind each net. Now they're together. The collectif is an assembly of multiple supporters groups that are smaller that come together under the umbrella of the collectif. And they normally have certain privileges that include flags, drums, and smoke. Now, those were the main things that were basically suspended for this game against DC United on Saturday. And in whether it's solidarity or just, in the spirit of fairness, 1642, who do have the bell in their section, did not ring it. So it was kind of it was a mass. I don't believe that fell under the purview of what was suspended, but the 1642 put out a statement right before the game saying that, no one else has any privileges, and so as such, we will not be ringing the bell during that game.
The Impact Montreal Collective says that it collaborated with the investigation by the team. It answered all questions, but it's saying, wasn't our people. We cannot rule out the hypothesis that someone outside the group may have uttered anti-Semitic insults during the game. We can confirm that he is not a member of the Montreal Impact Collective and that none of our members heard such comments. It also said the league refuses to provide evidence to confirm allegations and went on to say, this is not part of our values. However, I looked at the website for the Impact Montreal Collective, and a couple of their subgroups, quite frankly, look more like thugs than soccer fans. The logo for the youth wing is a masked person. And for another one, it's another masked person. And at their own webpage, you have them blowing off those smoke bombs with masks over their face. So I don't understand what values they say they embody and they engender.
So mass culture in soccer culture as a whole, not just in North America, but all over the world, is very prevalent. The keeping the identity, at least as closely guarded, of some of the more prominent members of supporters groups is fairly standard practice. So that's where the mask tends to come in. It's not necessarily any violent imagery. It's more just part of the aesthetic and the culture that is associated to supporters groups. One of the supporters groups, which is the 132 crew, that's the section that they find themselves in, did put out a statement. Based on the tone of that statement, I think that they are a member of the collectif. I think that their group was probably the ones that were accused of the anti-Semitism, given just how combative their statement compared to the collectif statement. And they're also the only supporters group that put out a statement acknowledging that they did say something. What they said towards Turgeman, the Israeli striker for the New England Revolution, was Free Palestine. That's the only thing that they conceded that they said. But, soccer culture in general, especially in Montreal, which has close ties to clubs like Marseille and now the clubs throughout Europe and South America, is one of anti-racism and anti-discrimination. So, again, this is all what was said in their statement, right? And the Palestinian flag has been flown in the supporter section many times, and as is the case with most supporters groups, it's tightly linked with political movements, be it on either side of the political spectrum. And clubs all over the world also have right-wing beliefs, so that's not something that it's new. It is maybe a bit newer in the North American sphere of sports, given that most supporters groups don't engage in political activity, but it is commonly accepted practice around the world, especially in soccer.
So do you believe now that this has blown over, that the club has taken action? You have those two supporters sanctioned who may have thrown the bottles at that player, that this is all over and done with?
I think this will continue to be a problem or an issue that keeps coming up as long as people make it to be that. I think that, once normalcy is kind of restored, especially because of the fact that I personally believe that they acted this quickly because of the fact that DC United, who came to Saputo Stadium on this past Saturday, also have another Israeli striker. I think them taking action this quickly was due in large part to that, because they maybe didn't want a repeat incident, or they didn't want a similar scenario. But I do think that for the most part, this will blow over. Yes.
And there were no incidents reported during the game on Saturday?
No, nothing of the sort.
All right.
Even though the Israeli striker, Taiba Rebo, he did score in front of the supporter section, but there were no reports of any kind of incident like that.
What was your take, by the way, just a closing quickie, Elias, with the Impact, I think it was the Impact goalie who tried to hustle Dor Turchman away from the fans when the bottles started to fly. Some people felt he was trying to push him around and pick a fight. Other people felt that he was trying to move them away from the fans, the angry fans.
Sebastian Breza is a very passionate goalkeeper. He's Montreal born and raised, and he's spoken to the media at length about the importance that the club in Quebec soccer culture. So I think he may have just taken umbrage to an opposing team striker kind of, talking a little bit of trash to his fans. I don't think that, what happened in the stands, whether it was bottles or reported anti-Semitic or Free Palestine chants, had anything to do with Sebastian Breza's actions specifically. I think it was more just like, you're giving my fans a hard time, so I'm going to make it your problem.
All right. Thank you very much, Elias, for your time.
Thank you very much.
Elias Grigoriadis is a Canadian press reporter covering CF Montreal.
It's Charles Barkley with Wayfair. It's outdoor season, and my patio setup, that'll be ready to play. That's where Wayfair wins. Patio seating, umbrellas, and grills, all delivered fast and easy. Shop wayfair.ca now.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
You've heard the chaos. Now you can see it. Oh my gosh. Watch all your favorite podcasts from start to finish right inside the free iHeartRadio app.
Gets the blood going, huh?
Catch every laugh and eye roll on shows like the Tom Green Farmcast and Park the Bus, now with full video.
We're building a ramp for Tony Hawk.
It's the same hosts and the same chemistry with all the hilarious moments you've been missing right on your screen.
Cheers.
Open the free iHeartRadio app, search video podcasts, and tap watch.
The Elias Macco Show. News Talk Radio. CJAD 800.
Checking in now with Aaron Rand, who is prepping Montreal now. And of course, the centerpiece today will be, Aaron, that interview with Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon.
Yeah, he let us all know yesterday, of course, in the afternoon that he'd have his big announcement today at 7:30, and true to his word, he did. So yeah, we're happy to have him on today, just joining us right after 3 o'clock, after the news.
What kind of questions do you have for him specifically, Aaron? What do you have in your head?
Well, I was going to ask him how he thinks the Blue Jays are doing, because the past couple of weeks they've been really rallying. They beat, the Red Sox, beat the Yankees. No, I'm going to ask him, I think the question that most people ask, or would consider asking, that's something we'll ask our listeners as well, does this really make a difference one way or the other? Just because you're going to put it off until Donald Trump is no longer president, whenever that might happen to be, does that change your mind about potentially, voting for PQ? Because ultimately you still get a referendum. The question is when. And by the way, I don't know if it's fair to bring up or not, what if Donald Trump somehow decides he would run for a third term? That's been discussed in the past before. Then what?
Yeah, good question. Or he is replaced by somebody who potentially is worse.
Exactly, yeah.
Yikes.
Like J.D. Vance, for example, right.
Yeah. I guess the timing also came up. Tom Mulcair was, in his comments this morning, was implying that he found the timing of Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon's release this morning at 7:30 to be kind of suspect, in that Tom, I think, felt it was calculated to be a distraction from Quebec's triumphal, Churchill Falls renegotiated deal with Newfoundland.
Yeah, well, I mean, to which he had previously said, right, he was quoted as saying that, if they were in power, he would rescind the deal or somehow work out something different. So obviously he had to say something. But I think he made that announcement yesterday afternoon as well. He might have been, scrummed at one point. and talked about that deal and basically said, well, look, if it's good for Quebec, then, I guess we'll keep it or we'll look at it. They say what coincidence is not coincidence in politics, right? Everything is done at a time for a reason. I think, though, maybe the reaction to his op-ed or open letter in the National Post from the week before, which had a lot of people wondering why the National Post, if you wanted to reach Quebecers as opposed to, the rest of Canada. So maybe you felt there was reason to clarify that. Because the only thing from what I remember, Trudy, in that particular piece was him talking about the referendum using the word later. No clarity, no clarification, no details, just later. So maybe you felt he had to kind of explain what later was or is.
Yeah, but as you point out, it's still in a first mandate.
Either way, yeah, so what does that mean? By the way, and if Trump loses the midterms, does that change anything with respect to his timing? I don't know.
Well, so many questions to ask. You could also, he has never explained, because he didn't make himself available to the Anglo media anyway. I don't think last week after he put that piece in the National Post, so that might be a question too. Who are you talking to there? It's obvious, I think, it's the rest of Canada. Not so much, it was addressed to us, Anglophones in Quebec, but I don't think he was speaking really to us.
Fair question to ask, right? Why wouldn't he have done that in the Gazette, for example?
Yeah, exactly. Anything else really coming up on the show?
With any luck at all, this is interesting, we may have Charles Milliard on at 5:30 to answer to Paul St. Pierre Plamondon, which would be kind of fun. So we're working on that. That'll be coming up, as I said, after 5:30. We're going to talk about a story that was in the Gazette yesterday, abandoned buildings in this city and why they remain abandoned, because, of course, we're such, in a housing crisis right now, or a homeless crisis. We could be using those buildings, so why are they sitting there with little being done? And why are the folks, if they're not owned by the city, not applying the changes, the fixes to them that they're being told to? So we'll talk about that as well.
More good questions. Aaron Rand, thank you very much.
Thanks, Trudy.
All right, that's all coming up with Aaron on Montreal Now this afternoon. I'll be back in a sec.
It's Charles Barkley with Wayfair. It's outdoor season, and my patio set up, that'll be ready to play. That's where Wayfair wins. Patio seating, umbrellas, and grills, all delivered fast and easy. Shop wayfair.ca now.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
The newest tracks. Let's go. New music. And the next big thing.
Always on the new music first.
Your first place to hear it all.
'Cause you gon' like it, love it, wanna play it twice. Playing now.
iHeart New Music. Your digital station for brand new drops, fresh finds, and tomorrow's bangers.
I think we need something new.
Discover iHeart New Music. Always fresh, always first. Stream now on the free iHeartRadio app.
Sincere thanks to Jay Farrar in Master Control, Maxime Cadat, who is the content producer for the Elias Mako Show. I'll be back in the seat tomorrow. It looks like it will be quite a pleasant August day in Montreal. I hope you get a chance to enjoy your afternoon.
It's Charles Barkley with Wayfair. It's outdoor season, and my patio set up, that'll be ready to play. That's where Wayfair wins. Patio seating, umbrellas, and grills, all delivered fast and easy. Shop wayfair.ca now.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Unmistakably Canadian.
It's the music that raised you.
The artists raising the bar.
Hi, this is Brian Adams.
Hey, my name's Brett Emmons. I'm from the Glorious Sons.
Hi, I'm Nelly Furtado.
Made in Canada. The station that champions Canadian music.
Loud, proud, and all yours.
No passports required. Just press play.
Tap into Made in Canada now on iHeartRadio.ca
or the free iHeartRadio app.
You're listening to the Voice of Montreal.
News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
An iHeartRadio station.
This newscast brought to you by Supermarché Acavan, where fresh, hot bread is baked on the spot every day. Freshness you can taste. Quality you can try.
Hello, Canada.
This is Brian Adams Radio. Hosted by Brian Adams himself.
We'll play a few of mine, a ton of my favorites, and some must-hear behind-the-scenes stories from the world of rock and roll.
I'm coming to get you.
One thing about doing rock and roll so long is you end up meeting a lot of the people that you admire. Sometimes you even get to work with them.
It's only love, and that's all.
Brian Adams Radio.
I'm coming back to you.
Now available on the free iHeartRadio app.
Everybody, how are you tonight? Sounds great.